Hello and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and as always, I'm joined by Mike Smith, award-winning director Brian Redondo, and Savon Jones, aka Captain Bonnie. This is episode 62, and we're weighing the soul of Moonknight, Marvel's new Disney Plus show. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund.
Incredible!
Welcome back to the pod. We got our full complement of folks here. I'm really excited about this one. We get to talk about Moonknight, Oscar Isaac, star of the show, doing the heavy lifting. For those of the people out there who haven't had a chance yet to check out Moonknight, we've already dropped 2 episodes. What is the premise of the show? Savon, lay it on us as quickly, as succinctly, as basically as you can.
Yeah, keep it quick. So the premise of Moonknight, it stars the lovely
Oscar Isaac.
So handsome. That man is handsome.
Yes, as the character Steven. And Steven
with a V?
is Steven
No
with
PH?
a V. And our friend Steven is
Shut
a
up,
gift
Wes.
shop worker.
Stephen Strange.
Oh, true.
So this Steven is a seemingly everyday man who seems to have sleep issues. As we learn through the show, he is actually the avatar of an ancient Egyptian figure who fights crime, or I wouldn't even say fights crime, but exacts vengeance on those who are evil. And the character also has a lot of identity and mental health struggles that manifest in combination with these powers, and you get a really interesting, niche, brutal character, Moonknight.
Thanks, sir. So if you're out there and you haven't yet seen Moonknight, you're going to hear a whole lot of spoilers. So this is your opportunities to hit the exit ramp. Come back later when you've actually seen the show. If you don't mind spoilers,
Episodes.
yeah. If you just the first 2 episodes.
There's only 6. I mean, like,
Only 6?
it's moving quick.
Yeah.
Dude, and speaking of spoilers, I felt like Savon lately because, like, I'm really into this show and I, like, don't know anything about the character, which is a lot of what I've been enjoying about it. They have such a massive ad campaign for this show, and after every episode comes out, there's a new trailer that has stuff from, like, the rest of the show, and it's spoiling so much stuff, and I'm about to turn into Savon, like, and just avoid trailers altogether because it's, like, so much stuff from the second episode was just in the trailers, and I didn't need that in my life at all.
I have not seen a lot of trailers, actually, or spoilers.
I've been watching a lot of, like, Amazon Prime shows, and, like, for some reason,
they're advertising over
marketing
there.
the shit out of it.
Awesome. Sorry, BK.
Sorry, BK.
Also, we have a co-host
Password.
today. You hopefully won't hear her, but Kaya is in the room with me. She's chilling. She just got her bottle. We tried to feed her some asparagus. Bro, the faces she makes when she has asparagus, she hates it.
Same.
Said everybody else ever.
She is not a fan of pureed asparagus.
Why
For
would you
what
want
we're
to make your
loving next
baby's pee
episode.
rancid?
Yeah.
You setting yourself up for failure.
What do you think she would talk about on What We're Loving, Wes?
I
Paw
think
Patrol?
she would No,
Mama?
we're trying to limit her screen time, which, like we said before, is pretty difficult when
That's so funny,
you're really
given
into
that
screen
you
time.
have a
Yeah.
podcast that is entirely revolved around screen time.
And I've got like 50 plus hours in Horizon Zero or Forbidden West. But she would for sure talk about. You can't hear me now. This giraffe rattle, which you can now hear. I took it away from her for a second because I thought it would be kind of loud in the background, and kind of annoying to people listening. But
Wait, that's the thing she's loving, and you stripped it from her?
this rattle right
But
here.
And you're feeding her asparagus?
Yeah, man. But she's
Man,
got
call child
thing.
services, everybody.
She's got another,
People listening to
blanket,
this
stuffed
show
animal.
are clearly immune to being
This one?
irritated.
This
so
one
I
is
think the
just
bell is
silent,
not gonna do
loud.
too much.
The one she's got right now is silent, so it's good for podcast recording. She is not silent, though, so you may hear her during this show, and I'm going to have to put her down for a nap at some point. Not, put her down. Put her down for a nap.
Why?
Whoa.
To do that.
Oh, my goodness.
You just can't help
Yikes.
yourself.
We got to put her down for a nap in about, I'd say probably about 10 minutes or so. She'll start getting a little cranky, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe she'll stay in for the whole show, and she'll be a good side pilot for me here. All right, so we got 2 out of 6 episodes so far. What do you think? Brian, start us off.
So I'm a little bit familiar with the character of Moonknight, mostly through Marvel superhero trading cards from the 90s. And I was like,
That's cool.
oh, Moonknight, really cool looking character. I've never read one issue of the comic, however. So I'm sort of vaguely familiar. And I think the show so far does a good job of entangling you into the madness that is the backstory of Moonknight, right? It's full of intrigue. You don't know exactly what's going on. Of course, Oscar Isaac is giving a per usual stellar performance, talking to himself and, going manic. They're debatable whether or not his British accent is passable, but I think that's fine. And so it creates a lot of mystery and intrigue about what's going on, and I think that is actually great for the MCU because there is not enough of that. On the flip side, though, I will say the handling of some of the material is a little uneven throughout the show. I think there are a lot of cartoonish moments that I've been kind of turned off by, and I don't even know if they're deliberate. I mean, Khonshu's voice itself, it sounds really silly when he's like, break his windpipe out of nowhere. I'm like, what is that? Am I supposed to take that seriously or not? I don't even know. When Steven summons the Moon Knight suit, the white suit, and comes out looking like Jim Carrey in The Mask, like,
I love that moment.
I mean,
loved that moment.
Like,
and then he's like instantly
know
like
if
the
I'm
most
supposed to take that
confident man
seriously.
in the world. It's like
it's a little goofy, and the fact that I know that in the comic books when he puts on the white 3-piece suit, he's actually a badass. He's supposed to be a badass. So to see the show do it that way, I don't know. So I'm definitely in for the ride just because I feel like this is a very original MCU tale. And I think Moon Knight as a character has plenty of runway to go to keep it interesting. So I'm invested in that regard. But is it my favorite? Not so far.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. The set pieces are fun when they're inside the museum and he's having to run from the jackal. All of that is just a lot of fun, right? There's like things breaking, but the way they frame it, the sink gets thrown out of the door, and then you kind of find out what's happening inside. So I think they're doing a great job with like the action pieces, but I also like that the scenes where they're doing that are not giant scenes. So you're not destroying whole city blocks. There isn't a spaceship destroying all of London like you would get in a Spider-Man show or a Spider-Man movie or an Iron Man movie now. The scope is small. The room is getting destroyed, or the building is, maybe the building is getting destroyed. So I like that the scope is pretty small here in terms of where they're going, and maybe that's a budget thing, but I actually think it works to be more interesting for me when it's like that. The mythology aspect, I think, is like Brian said, it's interesting. Oh, hi Kaya.
Ooh, she's into lore.
Yeah,
that's a lore baby.
Building.
Gotta get that
world
background.
Building.
Yeah, we got to have a lore bucket. We got to donate every time Mike says lore. Which you don't say anymore.
I say world building.
Yeah, you just
more syllables.
And I like that we don't know what's going on. I mean, maybe people of the comics who've read the comics know more, but I like that we're still trying to figure it out because Steven's still trying to figure out what the heck is going on, how all these figures relate. They're telling us about Amit and they're telling us about Khonshu a little bit. And they're dropping those little breadcrumbs for us. So I think that's cool. I like that there's like a multifaceted struggle here, right? Mark is having, Steven is having struggles within himself in his own personal life. He's also now struggling with Mark. He's now having to figure out what to do with Layla. His concern, and we're trying to figure out too if Khonshu or Khonshu, I don't know how to say it, the bird beak guy, whether he or Amit or neither of them is actually the way forward. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff here. I think this could be really awesome. I think it could also go really badly in that there's a lot of stuff to unpack here, and if they don't tie it all together or tie most of it together, you could end up with sort of a hot mess towards the end. So we'll see kind of where it goes, but I'm digging it so far. I've been glued to the TV. I even watched the first one twice. Savon, where are you at?
You watched the first one twice and still missed stuff.
I did, yeah. I did
that's
that.
impressive.
Hey, I'm tired. My brain is tired.
Do you just use one eye per watch through and
I
one
mean, you
ear?
have to have one eye on the
No,
baby,
just half a
right?
brain per
You should
watch.
at least be more rested your second watch. That's the point of the second one.
It's true.
It's fine. Do what you got to do. Play. If you got to watch it,
You gotta go level up and then come back.
Subtitles. You watch subtitles?
Invite me in if you need help with that boss.
I need some subtitles. Whatever.
These references are gonna make no sense.
Yeah,
to
this is
people.
just gonna
Right.
be an Elden Ring podcast. You know?
Yeah, but
Ghost.
I'm enjoying Moonknight a bit. Moonknight, kind of similar to you, Brian. I'm familiar with the character in terms of I've heard of him.
I thought you
but
said it brought that pressure.
It did bring that pressure. But I'm saying I'm enjoying the show, but I'm not someone who was super deeply invested into the Moon Knight character. He wasn't one of my
no one
favorite
is.
characters. There are people
No
who
one's
read
super
comics who are
invested.
Moon Knight fans. I'm sure there's like a niche, but I wasn't one of them. But I'm enjoying what they're doing with it. I think, Brian, your critique about maybe the tone feeling a bit all over the place, I think that's a valid critique. I think what I'm enjoying about it, though, is I think it feeds into why Steven feels like he's losing his damn mind. Because so many things that are to him just absolutely traumatizing, awful moments, they kind of show it from other people's perspective and they kind of play it for laughs. But that's kind of a lot how mental health and struggles really are. Like things that seem like nothing is going around to other folk because the jackals are literally invisible. To him, it's like,
That was
yo,
cool.
this is real. So
Yeah, that was cool.
scenes where he's silly is like, yeah, he's silly with the suit on and all that. But like, yo, this woman he doesn't understand his connection with is in mortal danger, and so is he. And so it is a real, like, I kind of like how they're doing that weird, what is it, juxtaposition of just,
Yeah.
this is serious, but also, ha ha ha, he's losing his mind. But like, yo, actually, he's losing his mind. Like, this is, I don't know. I'm enjoying them playing around with that, and I think we're gonna enjoy more of it when we get to see different sides of Marc. Because right now we've only gotten to see Steven, and to a mild-mannered day-to-day guy, this is insane. But yeah. So I'm enjoying the show overall, just because it's a unique idea. It's a lot of stuff I haven't seen before, and Oscar Isaac is just such a damn good actor.
He really
What a
is.
stud.
And I was very skeptical, particularly of him going into this show, just because he's in everything. Like, and he even said, I saw this quote from him, he was very skeptical of doing the show because he didn't want to be a cog. And he literally said a cog in the Disney machine again after the Star Wars movies.
Huh?
Yeah. Because, obviously that character also, suffered a lot at the hands of the lack of direction in that trilogy. But he does a great job. The accent is weird. The accent is doubly weird because then he switches to his normal American accent when he's doing Marc. But overall, that's fine. I think Savon is absolutely right. I think, the strength of the first episode was it did a good job of laying the groundwork of what does, like, insanity for Steven feel like, and then you kind of added the Moon Knight character around that slowly. But then, back to what Brian said, it just immediately put on the Marvel hat. Like, it was almost like he, put on a hat, and he just started making, quips, like, when he got the suit on, and then was suddenly, a good fighter, and was like, oh, wow, that was a good punch, and I was like, oh, my God. Sorry, Wes.
So
That was really what I felt, though, and it's just irritating. Like, I've been waiting for a Marvel show to kind of, rise above, to get, our Dark Knight or Spider-Man No Way Home or, Infinity War moment where it kind of, is a little bit more elevated. I do think this show is, I think there's been 2 tiers of Marvel shows so far. There's been, Loki, WandaVision, and then there's been, Falcon and Winter Soldier and Hawkeye on the lower tier. And after the first one, I thought this was really gonna be kind of the top and really maybe be judged as a TV show in its own right and not so much a superhero thing. I don't think we're gonna get that with this show, especially because it's only 6 episodes. And after the second one, I was like, okay, well, this is still kind of corny. But I mean, the thing is, this is original. This is the first really truly new character we've gotten that's been fleshed out, and we're kind of it's being able to grow organically. All of the shows have either been sidekicks or reimaginings of characters, and I think not only is this a new character, it's super original. I mean, it has multiple layers. he has cool powers in its own right, but the Egyptian lore aspect and the insanity aspect, I think, is interesting. So it's something I look forward to watching every week, but I was very sad when it was just like, okay, this is just going to be another Marvel thing.
That is interesting, because I did not get that impression. Like, the complete impression I got was when he was like the more silly, clearly the suit gave him a confidence boost bit. I thought that clearly them laying down the groundwork of like, Moon Knight's entire bit is that he has the dissociative identity disorder. Basically, that's the entire the entire bit. So, like, to me, it seems like I like the idea of one version of him being an absolute BA efficient mercenary.
No, I like that.
I'm saying kills.
No, I'm not saying when he turns into Marc. I'm saying
I know.
Steven.
Yeah, I know. Okay. I know. I'm saying no. I like the idea of like that. Feels like that would be in line with what we've already seen with Steven, of being this meek, cheesy, corny guy who, if he suddenly has strength and a confidence boost, like, to me, I guess it didn't bother me, because that felt in line with what they've already established him as, which is an absolute cornball. Like, the dude's a cornball. He's lame as hell. Like look at how his interactions with people, going on about Egyptian lore to random kids when he's the gift shop seller and all that. Like, I would have been more bothered by that if it was someone who it wasn't art. It felt like I would have been bothered if Marc was saying stuff. But to me, the fact that it's cheesy Steven, and I think they're going to clearly build out what his relationship with the suit is, like, to me, that was very promising. That won me over, of like, oh, okay, so we're going to get to have BA Moon Knight, and then maybe silly but proficient in other regards Moon Knight, and really play into like this dude is still battling between maybe two efficient heroes who are still having a natural clash. So it's interesting that that's what you took from that. It seems
like, as a whole, the show is a missed opportunity for them to get a little bit more darker and serious with the character. Which is, I get like they're just not going to do that. I think a few things have been like coloring my perception. Like, one, like, I've seen all these funny like tweets and TikToks about like the Batman. It was like, I like the Batman, but I think it could have used like more quips and like that type of thing. And then they've just put on all the Netflix Marvel shows on Disney Plus. So now they have to have like a warning, and you have to like redo like parental shit when you sign into your account. It's like, there is now like TVMA content on Disney Plus. And I was like, I guess when I saw that, I was like, ooh, is Moon Knight going to be like a little bit more edgy? And it's just not. But I don't think you're wrong, Savon. I think it does align with the character. But ultimately, it's just another Marvel show.
I think it's going to get really dark when they lean into, like we said before, I think when you start to lean more into Marc's story, I think it's going to get a lot darker, because I don't know to what extent you know about Marc's character, but it's
not a lot.
Well, they allude to it that he's a mercenary.
Yeah.
And clearly they're gonna go with his classic. I think maybe his classic origin story, which is like, oh, okay, cool. This is legitimately. I think you're gonna get your gritty, but the silly setup humor is. I think it works for Steven's situation, because his situation isn't gritty. Like, he isn't in. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think gritty fits what his situation is.
I do hope the show changes tone with Marc. I think that's a very interesting prospect. But I have a feeling it's not going to. I have a feeling that they are doing these tone shifts not out of it's not dictated by the material itself. They're not trying to like make the material better by doing this stuff. I think they're doing it because it feels like the show is kind of mangled through the machine of the MCU, and it doesn't know exactly what it wants to be.
You think this is TVMA more than you think it should be TVMA, but they're leaning into like TV 14.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Cool. All right. That makes sense.
Well, that brings us to our next part, which is the success of the show. Entirely 100%, or 99%, is going to rest on Oscar Isaac being able to pull off these two completely different personalities in a way that doesn't
there's more than two too, as well.
Oh, maybe that's true. It's gonna. Well, I mean, that may be true too, because he shows up in Egypt and neither of them remembers getting there, right?
I think there's like a Scottish one.
What's
anyway, there's like a Scottish one as well. I read.
Okay.
It was like a cab driver.
For him to get to Egypt and neither of them remember, somebody else was in control, right, to get them there. But for him to be able to pull off all of these different personalities is going to be really important for us to not feel like it's overdone, right? Like it can't fall into a hyper stereotypical trope. The conversations between them have to be interesting. They have to actually like have meaning and weight and actual tension. Are you bought into that so far? The Steven Marc dynamic, is that working for you? For me, it feels like it should be a gimmick. It should feel kind of silly. And I think there are times where it stretches that, but I think for the most part, for me, it's working. The tension feels real between them. Like Marc is trying to help because he wants to do the right thing, sort of, but he also knows like, hey, I need you to stop doing things. And Steven is like, no, like I'm literally like, you're a bad person. And he knows that it's himself too. And so he's trying to figure out and sort through how do I navigate that I'm actually doing these things and I don't want to do these things and I feel responsible, but I'm not responsible. And he's like, if I tell anybody about this, he knows that people are going to think he's crazy when he talks about it. And so I think that's a level, he's tied to reality enough that it feels real, that Steven is more of a realistic character than a just completely like lunatic Mad Hatter type of thing.
Yeah, what I do like is that not only does Oscar Isaac lay the distinctions between them, through the accent, the personality, the body language, right? Those things are very delineated and feel good when they come into conflict. But they are also laying out the difference in the moral spectrum in the show. Mm-hmm. So like Steven is, he's outraged by kind of the violence around him and also by what he hears from Ethan Hawke's character and the Minority Report version of justice that Ethan Hawke is promoting. And so and then Steven also has a problem with, the things that Marc is capable of. So it's not just about the performance and, these different personality tics between them, but it's also a moral push and pull between them, which I think gives the show more heft. And gives the characters, more believability, right? They become three-dimensional that way.
How you feeling about it, Savon, so far?
I mean, I'm enjoying it. The fact that, Brian's got the right point. There's a lot of tension between it, but I think what's working best with this dynamic is, like I said earlier, Oscar Isaac is just a great actor, so he just sells it. That episode 2 argument between those two was intense and had to have been very difficult for him to act out or just perform from a logistical standpoint. So like, shout out to him for just being good at his job. But yeah, the tension's real. And I think the biggest part that really drives it home is you don't really quite know who to root for, because there's not really, and this is the strength of the show, there's not really, like, there's a definitive antagonist, but there's not really a definitive protagonist. Like, Steven is kind of too much of a weenie for you to really think of him as someone who's driving the story forward, because he's a bystander.
At a gift shop.
He's kind of a proxy for us, honestly. He's kind of a proxy for just the us just saying, yo, what the hell is going on?
Right.
Marc, they're clearly establishing, isn't a good person. Like, he clearly has a dark past, and, best case scenario, he's a hostage in like a crappy situation. So the God himself isn't really benevolent. So there's a lot of gray moral ambiguity going on inside of just the Marc, Steven, and then the relationship with this God, to where it just makes for fun interactions. Like, you want to see Marc be awesome and wreck stuff, but it's also, Steven's got a point. Like, yo, dude, you're not good. I don't want you in control. He's like, all right, cool. But the God is also saying, hey, bruh, we got a deal. And it's just, I think that's what's making this show stand out from other Marvel shows. There isn't a clean good, evil line. There's bad guy, but then everything else is just kind of ambiguous, and that's really fun to watch.
What do you mean, the terrorists in Falcon and Winter Soldier? That wasn't gray enough for you? They didn't.
Yeah, or just the evil time police who literally just run time. Like, it's not, there's not a lot of ambiguity usually in the villains they do in Marvel, and this is. Or really not even the villains, the protagonists. And there's a lot more ambiguity in this one.
A lot of times as we talk about things, my opinion on them changes, and I think I'm liking it more as we're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think...
Win for Savon.
Bing! Where's the bell? Mike, hit the bell. I also think, I wanted to push back on what Savon said a little bit about Marc not being a good guy. I think that's certainly possible, and that's might be where we're going, and this is not going to discount your overall point about like the ambiguity in the show. The Marc character actually, to me, feels like there's a lot of him that's redeemable, that's good, that may end up coming out, right? Like, he may be someone who actually is trying to do the right thing. He is obviously caught up in some sort of deal with Khonshu. I think we're seeing he wants to protect his wife. And part of him maybe, well, I think definitely it seems like he's ignoring her or not responding to her because he wants to keep her out of the picture. And so there's a bit of self-sacrifice here that's going on that I don't think we can ignore and say, well, he's a bad guy. Well, like, yeah, but he's also trying to do the right thing by the people that he loves. And if that means that he has to sacrifice his life and his morals, then he's willing to do that. And that's a hard choice, right? And he's having to figure out the actual like ramifications about that. I also think that's probably the most, or like maybe just a little bit too much serious talk about, like, you know, a guy that walks around in a mummy costume.
No. I mean, I think that's a valid point. But if anything, it's good that they have their own motivations. But you know, villains can have kids and families they care about and still be bad guys. Like Thanos still loved Gamora. He was still absolutely wrong.
Yeah, but this is like
bad.
a moral quandary, right? Like, he's having to choose between doing the quote unquote right thing and also doing another thing that's also right, which is protecting your family.
Fatherhood has made you weak, old man.
Are you calling him Will Smith?
Oh my God, we were doing so well. I guess what it comes down to, Wes, is us finding out how he got into that situation in the first place, because
Yes.
he might just be someone who set himself up to get stuck in a deal with the devil, and so
Yes.
it's hard to feel
And that might
sympathy
be
for
on
someone
his
who, like, hey, y'all, this was, you know. But if anything, regardless of how that plays out, it's fun that people have conflicting motivations that don't even remotely align, even if they have to still work together. And it's like he might be doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, and I like that.
For sure.
That's fun. That's fun. It makes for fun character interactions.
So tell me if this question is dumb, but Amit, right, and Ethan Hawke's character, Harrow, I think his name?
Harrow. That's his name.
Harrow. They obviously are trying to balance the scales of an entire person's life, and they decide this person overall has done evil or has contributed negatively to the world. They deserve to die, even if that crime or that evil hasn't been committed yet.
Minority Report.
Right, like Brian said, right,
1984.
the precogs, right, and yeah, and you're pre-crime for sure. And in Loki, the Time Variance Authority, the TVA, they did the same thing. Right? They prune the timelines of these variants because they've done something wrong, right? They've gone against the timeline that should have been established. Even if they've done nothing wrong in terms of they haven't done anything morally wrong or evil, they end up getting killed or sent to, you know, this nether region of some sort. Is Marvel trying to take this idea somewhere important? Like, is that going to tie into this multiverse idea again? Are we where? I don't know. It's just, it seems to me like this is a theme that's didn't have to be used, and yet it's clearly something that they're stuck on. How is this going to tie into Doctor Strange? How is this going to tie into the rest of Marvel, you know, Phase 4? Savon, do you have any ideas coming from the comics realm?
I mean, this is not even coming from comic, bro. This is just coming from like Egyptian mythology. That's just how the Egyptian mythological afterlife goes. You go, you weigh your heart on the scale, and then depending on whether your heart is, you know, weighed heavy from sins or light, you either, you know, you have either a good ending or a bad ending. I'm not going to pretend to be an Egyptian mythology expert, but I know that basic premise. So I wouldn't read too heavily into this. The idea of scales, balance, committing crimes before you did it is, like Brian said, Minority Report, 1984.
Never
like,
read it.
Maybe, yeah, just, it's not exactly a new trope, and it's one of the older tropes we've seen. This is just one that works for the mythology and the history pieces they're using, which is, you know, clearly Egyptian.
It
Yeah, I
is
think-
weird that this is functionally like the same thing as the multiverse. Like, you're getting different versions of the same character, but it's obviously not a multiverse. And they've also said, like, this doesn't explicitly connect to the MCU as of yet.
Also, it's too early to tell. Like,
Also,
don't
like,
know more
doesn't
about
matter.
this goddess.
It doesn't matter. Also, I mean, like, I think like it a strength of the show would be that it doesn't have to explicitly connect. I think
Put
that
in
would
the
actually
notes.
be a better thing in the show, is if it doesn't connect.
Yeah, let's hope Val doesn't show up at the end. God, that would be
Is
so
that
annoying.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus'
Is that
character?
That would be so bad if she showed up at the end and was like, I'm
I think
gonna
there's a
recruit
lot
you.
of things they could do that would really hurt the show, but I don't imagine they're going to tie it into anything significantly.
We'll see.
Maybe just acknowledging they're in the same world, but
I've seen a lot of
Yeah,
good
man.
like comic panels with like Spider-Man and I think like Deadpool as well. But
Yeah, I mean,
again-
lots of characters interact. They interact all the time.
So where I think this show actually I don't think like the villain part is where they're trying to do some sort of motif with villains in the MCU. I don't think they're thinking about it that deeply, but I do think that just like the ancient Egyptian mythology kind of reminds me of all the like ancient world, old world mythos that a lot of the new properties are delving into. So you have Wanda, who's, you know, getting into the whole witchcraft and sorcery mythos, and then you have Shang-Chi, who's kind of doing like old world China, like there's a civilization that you didn't even know existed with flying beasts, and then you have the Eternals. Again, you know, going back to the first human civilizations and where all their advancements came from, the origins of that stuff. So at the end of Shang-Chi, right, they're, you know, the Avengers, or I forget who it is. The Hulk is like analyzing the 10 rings with Wong, and they're like, oh, you know, we've never seen something like this before, but these things are coming from another part of the universe, and we need to understand it. And so I think that is a thread that is going to come across throughout all of these old world mythologies, is that they probably all in the MCU have some sort of common source and is going to lead to, you know, a singular villain at some point. My guess.
Yeah, I like that you're bringing that up. Right, we're sort of the first, 3 phases were about tech, about Tony Stark, about moving forward, and about maximizing the engineering potential. The latest few, you're right, have been a lot about sort of ancient, not technology, but ancient sort of powers and ancient, mythical beings and creatures and stuff like that. So that's a cool connection that we're sort of very much transitioning here. For me, actually, I don't think I prefer that, though. I'd rather have them more tied into what we know and we understand about the world, given that it sort of presents constraints on where they can go. When they take on these old ancient things, beliefs and powers, they can sort of just do whatever they want, and it's an unconstrained sort of world. And so hopefully they don't go too far with that is all. If this isn't hitting the mark.
Savon's making a craziest face right now.
I'm upset.
Why?
Why are you upset?
Complaining? You know how much complaining y'all have done in this pod about hating how things connect and all this, and then I explicitly hear something about how you hope it connects. I was ready to stone cold stun you through this Zoom call.
No,
Like,
I don't.
what do you people want?
No. Not that I don't want it to connect. I think there's a
Spider-Man to come and dap him up and hit the Dougie like.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
One
that
Wolverine.
No. I'm saying that when you had the Tony Stark era and a Captain American era, they're existing in a modern America, modern world that we're familiar with. And so you can't go too crazy with that. Right? Like, you still have to play by some of the ground rules that we currently exist and that billions of people across the world are familiar with. When you start bringing in Eternals and Shang-Chi and these different, like, ancient worlds, lands, beings, you can sort of just, like, well, that's the rules that exist in that area. And you don't have to be, I think, as conscious about making sure everything fits together. Not between properties, but within that own story, like that it actually has to fit. You can just sort of make it up and be like, well, that's just the way it works, right? And everybody has to accept it. I don't know.
Do we accept Iron Man's Mobius strip? of time travel. Like mystical mumbo jumbo is also pretty much techno mumbo jumbo.
Yeah,
it
but
achieves
the thing
whatever the
is,
plot needs to achieve. But
I know,
hold on.
but we're getting like so many of those, like Wesley's saying, like we have like 4 of those little worlds now. Like,
But that's how
there's, like,
that's how Marvel is. That's what the
But it
Marvel
wasn't
world
how it
is.
was before. It was
Yeah,
used to
this is a
just
shift,
be
that's all.
space Marvel,
Yeah.
and it used to be military-industrial complex Marvel. Those were the
It's a
two
shift.
Marvels.
But
Now
also
we
America
have
Marvel.
Now we have ancient China Marvel, ancient Egypt Marvel. We have ancient, I don't even, whatever you want to call the Eternals.
Eternals, yeah.
And now we have
people,
ancient
people.
space Marvel.
Yeah, ancient space. Real talk. I mean, the one thing I'll say with that is that makes sense from a logistical standpoint because the MCU had to start off with its more grounded characters in order to even invest interest. Like, you're not going to start off with Shang-Chi and build up to Captain America.
Right,
You start off
right.
with Iron Man, which are grounded
Right.
real-world stories to Wes's point to draw people in. And now that they're invested in this world, because it's so similar to our own, then you can dig deep into the stuff that starts to deeply deviate from our world completely. Like, you're not going to get a Doctor Strange movie early in the MCU timeline relative to the others, because no one's gonna care. No one's gonna believe the magic unless you have this other stuff set up first to kind of draw you in.
That makes sense.
But that's purely from like just I think logistical standpoint, not
Yeah.
necessarily what is best or what works.
Is there anything that you guys would hope that changes over the course of the next episodes, or something you wish was different in the first 2? Like, if you could change one thing about the show, where would you go with that? So far for me, I think I'm really enjoying the show. I don't think I would change too much. I like that there's the effects that they're using are different, right? The lights that flash on and off down the hallways when he's kind of freaking out, and the quick cuts that they're doing, all of that stuff I'm really actually enjoying. It's just a very different feel for a Marvel show. The only thing maybe I'm thinking, not that it needs to change, but that's sort of lacking to me, is Moon Knight still doesn't seem to have like the cachet or the charisma or just the power of even someone like Spider-Man. And obviously Spider-Man's one of the most popular Marvel characters, but he's just sort of there. We're just sort of in, this thing, and there's a couple of fights or whatever, but I don't know. There's something just like the it factor is sort of missing here. And maybe it's just because I'm not familiar with Moon Knight, and maybe that's the only thing. But
Savon
there's
is not impressed with this take.
no. It's
Did
just
you not
something
see
small.
This man black out, and people just wake up around him dead.
Oh wait, we haven't talked about the scene in the ice cream truck going down the
Literally
mountain.
Blacked out. He woke up around 4 dead bodies, and you said, "I wish he was a little more impressive."
Well, but we didn't see it.
The van was spun around backwards.
That was an
too.
amazing scene.
Reverse, and he clearly domed people
Amazing.
into one. But
We didn't. But we
Spider-Man,
didn't.
no.
Yeah, but we didn't get to. We didn't get to see it. Like
That's what
literally,
made
we
it
didn't get
even
to see
more
it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that made it really cool.
It was
really
super
cool.
cool. No, it was super cool. I'm just saying he doesn't. We haven't seen him be like him, right?
It's
we haven't
2
seen him be.
episodes.
We
They're
did
holding
right at
back
the
the
end.
reveal.
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
They're
They did. Did
really-
they not reveal it at the end of the second episode? When
And the end of the
takes
first,
chest
but it's just
thing and
Yeah.
whoops some
Yeah.
ass a little bit.
yeah.
I'll say, like, in relation to that, the thing that I want to see is like, I do want to see him get down finally, and without like these invisible jackals. Why they got to be invisible? It makes the fight look absolutely ridiculous, which is probably the point. But yeah, let's gritty this up, and let's see him get to brass tacks and use his abilities, like, to really cement Moon Knight's Moon Knight as a superhero, his place, his pecking order in the MCU.
Mhm.
Let's see what
He also
can do.
hasn't been injured yet as Moon Knight.
He's tough.
Yeah, he's a
clearly
badass.
established. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, he could eat a lick. They saw when he ripped that bumper out. They were setting it up like, hey, he not just a dude. But
His vigor is on like 100.
facts, big strength build.
Yikes.
No, but I think what I'm most excited
Cialis
for,
advertising right here.
what's drawn me into the
Yikes.
show.
What?
What has drawn me into the show was us seeing everything from Steven's perspective as an everyman who's watching
Yes.
himself go insane.
Wow.
That's been really fun these first 2 episodes.
But
I
that's
think the
gone
next-
now.
I know. I think I'm ready for now I'm ready for the pivot of like, okay, this is from Marc's perspective, and I think that's when we're gonna get that gritty. We're gonna get to see some of the real kick-ass stuff in action. Dang, I was doing so well for so long on that.
That's barely a bad word. You could say that on. That's TV-14.
It's A with $2 signs.
But I'm excited for us to get like a episode centered on Marc, his side of the story, and that's going to be gritty. And I think to Brian's point, we're going to get to see what happens during those cuts. But I think them focusing on different sides and different episodes could be a real fun strength to really drive into like, hey man, I'm living half a life right now.
I do not think 6 episodes is going to be enough. I'm interested to see how because like we're already a third through it, and I feel like we've just kind of like gotten through the prologue.
I don't know. We bashed Mandalorian for taking too long with their 9 episodes or whatever they got. So
we will never be happy.
But they do side quests. Marvel doesn't do side quests.
Yeah, and we complain about that. We literally said, "Why is it going off?"
The show is not about
this show wouldn't
consistency.
exist.
It's about knee-jerk reactions.
We always want something different.
So I call confidently
I'm gonna start pulling
thoughtful.
receipts on y'all.
That's
I'm gonna start pulling receipts and just make a clip of Mike and Wes arguing with themselves like Stephen A. Smith on First Take.
Hilariously, that would probably up our I'm
gonna learn how to edit just to do this.
All right, well, let's wrap up there. I'm excited to see where this goes. I do want to see it. I mean, I'm telling you, that ice cream truck scene, that blew my mind, but I was just super into it. I was like, this is a really cool way to introduce what's going on with this character, and leave us kind of like to figure it out rather than to show us exactly what was happening. Great job showing, not telling by the director there. All right, leave us a review, leave us a comment, hit us up on Instagram. Savon has been putting up questions on the Instagram. Make sure you respond to them. We might be able to incorporate some of those answers and questions into the show in the future. So please do hit us up, interact with us.
Buy from our gift shop.
That was good.
We're out. See you next week.